Hello and welcome to DevSecTalks. I'm your host, Ashley Ward, and today I'm joined by Paul Smith, Head of Digital and Technology Futures at the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. The RNLI is a UK-based charity that has dedicated more than 200 years to saving lives at sea. In today's episode, we'll sit down with Paul to discuss his role in the RNLI, the value of digital transformation for a 200-plus-year-old organisation that's preparing for the next century, and much more. Let's jump right in. Paul, first of all, thank you very much for joining me. And to kick things off, the RNLI. I watched it, it was on the TV, Saving Lives at Sea was the program, and it was really, really moving. So I know that in organizations, we talk about the impact that we have on the end consumer, and in IT that sometimes gets lost, but certainly that brought it right home to me. I mean, you know, emotional about lives being saved. So it's really just lifeboats then. Is that what it's all about?
Hi Ash, great to be here. Firstly, you know what, it's really not. And that was the first thing that struck me, I think, when I joined the RNLI. It really is multiple industries in one. I mean, clearly what people see and love are the orange and blue boats, and they're used to seeing our lifeguards on the beach. But you know what, when you really pull back the surface of it, it's such a complex organization. Within that, we have search and rescue, we have the lifeguarding, we have water safety, so we're in schools and we're training kids, we're helping the public. We actually build our own boats too, believe it or not. We have a couple of boat manufacturing facilities. We obviously do fundraising as a charity and manage a volunteering organisation. And then you've got the shops, you've got the retail, we have the online aspect, we have the physical shops which our volunteers run. We have a hotel, we have a college, you know, we have construction engineering, we have a complete logistics supply chain. We even have museums. And then behind all that, you've got the facilities management and corporate services. So it's a really unique organisation to work for, and it's a great opportunity to learn about industries in a really safe environment too, actually.
And that really is the thing. So the shout then I need to say to everybody is, of course, that I did mention the website. I'd encourage everybody to have a look at the rnli.org, not just to support the charity, but as you mentioned, that shop, but also there's the volunteering aspect, there's the job opportunities that are there. I'm sure there was a theme park I was at, and there was actually an RNLI shop there as well, which was really exciting for me. I think the people in there were a bit shocked when I was just like that. Yes, I'll have all this stuff. And it is interesting. I know that from a training point of view, and from the museums, I've been around myself, as you can tell, I do. The RNLI to me always touches my heart, simply because it's that thing of we're not here to preach to people about things. We're not even going to preach too much about water safety. It's about just be safe. We don't, wear a life jacket, just do the right things and do that. So I do love those things. But the RNLI, you mentioned about you coming in. When did you join the RNLI? How long have you been there?
Well, that's approaching 4.5 years now, actually. It's flown by.
And you came in, I mean, you've got your title is Head of Digital Technology Futures, Head of Digital and Technology Futures. I wanted to make sure I got that right. What does that involve? Is that how you came into the organisation?
It's not, no. So I joined as a head of IT, traditional head of IT, but with quite a broad remit, actually. It was a great challenge. And we restructured last year where we tried to take a slightly different look at the way we lead technology of the organisation. So what that meant for me is that I handed over the kind of the run aspect of the house, so the service and support that was taken over by a head of services. And I moved into more forward-facing side of the organisation. So what I'm interested in now is all the aspects that you'd associate with the traditional head of digital kind of role. So, our websites, our digital income and fundraising, all that good stuff, application development and so on. But also I'm focused on setting the architecture roadmaps of the organisation. So really understanding what the future long-term and medium-term needs are going to be, and making sure we align our technology investment to that. And then the final piece for me is actually delivering that change through a technical portfolio. So it's a really exciting role, actually, really exciting role. I've been in the new kind of guy since last August, and I'm loving it.
If you were coming in, then what's the people approach you would have needed? I mean, there's one thing saying, well, we're going to manage the technology and what technologies are in use, but in an organisation such as the RNLI, and coming in that you would have had to do a lot of. I almost want to say changing of culture, but I suppose it's a question to ask you. What did that look like? How's that evolved?
What I quickly found in this is it was very similar to many other roles I learned and joined it actually for, in that you just have to focus on the people. I came in, I found real opportunities around process and culture, I found myself focusing towards building the foundations for the future around the skills and the ability within the team to constantly learn and develop in a really broad sense. So focusing on those sorts of things and focusing on what personal ownership meant and realizing the ability to make a difference. I found that my initial focus actually. It wasn't so much about the legacy technology of the day or the IT project of the day or even the SLAs of the day. It's about what shapes the team and is the team set up right? Do they have the right attitude? Do they feel motivated? What sort of pains do they have? And can I help there first? Let's get the engine running. And once we get the engine running, we can do some cool stuff. So I found that to do a bit of work in that space. And so I was looking at the team holistically, trying to make sure they were set up for success, making sure they had the experience and skills and the empowerment they needed. And we had to have a real look at sort of the training aspect too.
How do you actually go about doing some of the things you've just said? How, it's yes, there's opportunity. Yes, I can see there's this and then world peace would be nice as well. But what's some examples of how you did that?
I had to have some really honest conversations, to be honest with you, Ash. I mean, I had some fantastically experienced individuals and still do have in my team. And the conversation centered on actually, those 15, 16, 17 years in the organization, of course that is of value to me. But what's of more value to me is applying that to the future. So I had to really focus on actually, do we have a learning culture? Do people feel like they need to learn? Do they recognize that if they don't, in a technology environment, if you don't move forward and you're standing still, you're effectively moving backwards. So it was just let's just press pause and let's have that conversation. So trying to reinitialize that whole piece and trying to tell people and teach people the importance of learning and continual learning in a technology environment.
The permission to fail, I think, is really important. And I think it's more so, so I do a lot of work in the whole cloud native and that very deep technology areas there. And I think there too, there's this fear that if you confess that you don't understand networking, that you're a failure somehow. And we've seen deep, large technology companies who say, right, I want you to tell me about how a DNS request actually works. And then all of a sudden, seasoned professionals who are doing a good job go, I suddenly don't know. And if you're trying to hide that, you're absolutely right. That's barriers and you're not willing to change. Process can be sometimes taken apart. So if you're looking at people, we'll talk a little bit technology in a second. Obviously that's peppered throughout. But when you're doing process, a lot of people say, well, that's great. You have formal business process mapping that happens. There's a whole school of learning that's involved in that. What's your approach to looking at process in your area?
Some areas it's formal, some it's informal. So, as a charity, we're still responsible for making sure, we comply from a health and safety perspective and a GDPR perspective. So we have some of the same kind of requirements as other organizations, but we're a charity as well. So there's a set of requirements there. I think the great thing about being almost 200 years old is that, we're pretty well practiced in getting the boat out to sea and pulling someone from the water, right? And 200 years ago, you probably didn't find a Visio diagram in sight, or a process flow in sight. So some of those, what we'll call ways of working, the way we do things around here, really well drilled, right? It's a time-tested formula that just works. The rest of it is probably keeping up with the modern world, right? New technologies, new ways of working, new expectations in the business, new legislative requirements. But for us, there's a really, really defined link, and with many organizations actually, between the business capability, the process required to fulfill that capability, the information needed to fulfill the process, the application to manage that information, and then the tech stack. The techies amongst the audience will recognize that as something like TOGAF, but there is a real ripple effect, right? The processes, you shouldn't exist for the sake of it, and they're there to enable and power an outcome. But as an organization, we're trying to really, really focus and major on capability-based planning. So what is the outcome of the process? What is the thing we're trying to do? What is the effect we're trying to have? And so we're trying to focus on that in a really integrated way.
Sometimes difficult for people to see how they are more than just a small cog in a machine. Do people do that maybe too much or too little?
Yes and no. The most delightful thing I've found about joining a charity is that everyone that joins a charity joins for the cause, right? They're hugely passionate. Most corporates would give their hind teeth to have that kind of level of engagement and passion about selling their widgets or selling their product or selling their service, right? I have no issues with any individual, to a man or woman, getting out of bed in the morning and wanting to make a difference. My challenge is actually focusing all that passion in one direction, so we all move forward, without leaving any people behind, and no one disappears off over the horizon. So I think absolutely we've got our deep specialisms, but everyone, I think, I'm quite comfortable in saying everyone would look to the left and look to the right and say, can I help there, or can I call that out, and can we work on that? So from a process, and process comes secondary. It's about, are we doing the right things? Are we demonstrating our values? And really, are we on the button? Are we Johnny on the spot? Because someone somewhere on the front line will need the system working. They'll need that equipment there. They'll need the asset on service. So it's all about that. It's all about that.
What's your view on digital transformation, first of all? And how would you say that those little snippets of that, how does that go on in the charity?
I think, as you say, there are a lot of buzzwords running around, aren't there? I think you could probably apply the term digital transformation since the first computer hit an organization, right? And people were using it to do email instead of opening letters. It's nothing new, it's really nothing new. It's about how we're using technology and all the tools that we have in our kit bag to do what we need to do, be it technology, be it whatever, be it skills, be it process. So I don't think digital transformation is anything new, or digital acceleration, or agile, or any of that stuff. It's nothing new. I find it's all too easy for people to rush into tech solutions, and I think it's really important that every so often the tech practitioner takes a step back and back to our earlier conversation, looks to the left, looks to the right, understands what's going on, looks for an opportunity to learn, going back to our earlier point, because it's all about how they can be better at what they do by learning more. Whether it's digital transformation, whether it's an IT project of the day, I think my advice is just to ground it in what's the so what. What's the so what of that tool? What's the so what that we're trying to achieve? And I think I would still anchor us back in the business capability conversation. We used to call it requirements management, didn't we? Basing solution on good requirements before you jump into the tech. It's nothing new. Again, it's nothing new. This has been around before. So at the RNLI, we focus heavily on a great phrase that some of our leaders have started to talk about now, which is about the data being the king and the user being the queen, because that really helps us to ground ourselves in the thing we want to do, and balancing compliance and all those things around good information management and governance with the impact on the user, and how the user will use the solution. And for us, that's important, because with upwards of 30,000 volunteers, give or take, they give their time to us. So it's what's important to them, and making sure they can work well, and making sure that end user experience is actually as good as we can make it, and as efficient as we can make it.
Data analytics is, again, something that people, I see all over the place. It's the biggest growing field. I think I need to get some sort of qualification in data analytics. But how's that looking for you? I mean, are you excited by the possibilities of, I don't know, drilling into the data that's used for the fuel for the lifeboats, or what's that look like? What does data analytics mean to you?
Yeah, completely. We've actually got a whole team around it at the RNLI, supported by some great partners. So we have a data evidence and insights team. And at an operational level, we spend time continually looking around the coast of the UK and Ireland, assessing risk based on data, based on evidence, based on insights, to make better decisions about where we put things like assets, or where we may need to, inject a water safety intervention. And so the opportunity for data analytics at the RNLI is huge. Going back to the landscape I talked about earlier, any one of those industries can have a huge application for data and insight, be it manufacturing, be it logistics and supply chain, be it whatever. So there is a huge opportunity there for us completely. Yeah.
Listen, one of the things, there's a couple of things actually that I really, really dislike about you. One, the working in the RNLI, I think that's just a really, really good thing. And so obviously that's terrible. The job you're doing, I dislike you for that as well. It's one. The other one is you've got an MBA, and now you're just everything. I mean, if you married my wife, that'd be the only thing that would make it worse. Listen, I'm genuinely jealous. I think it's congratulations, first of all. It's an awful lot of work and really well done. From bringing people on point of view, it's something that I've wondered about as well. How do you decide what you're going to do when you grow up? How do you talk to people and say, listen, you don't need to do an MBA, or maybe you do need to do an MBA. What are your feelings on that? For somebody who's listening to this, who goes, I want to be that guy, Paul. I want to do more like he's doing.
As you say, I was fortunate enough to study for an MBA, and what that gave me, was a great amount of opportunity, because ironically, my dissertation was out understanding the impact of an ERP implementation of an organization, so the whole change management piece. But through those studies, I got the chance to focus on HR, to focus on finance, strategic management generally, marketing, so all the things that actually I probably wouldn't have got much exposure to in the day job as a technologist. So what they gave me was a very unique perspective, which I'm really grateful for now, and I keep that in my toolkit. But as a result, I've got that increased understanding and awareness. So I'm in a better position to relate the end user customer and their specific needs. So I think my advice in summary is, wherever you make a move to develop your technology skills, think about the business alignment of that. Because the better you understand the business, the better you'll be at spotting technology opportunity, the better you'll be at innovating, the better you'll be at solving problems, the better you will be at managing risk and issues, the better you will be at making sure that technology lands successfully, and actually just being able to join the dots, spotting the dots and join the dots. So I think all those things, I think the more you can get out and about, step away from the computer, step away from the code, step away from the flashy lights, get in and amongst the business, develop yourself as a business professional, it will pay dividends.
I spoke to someone who worked in a National Health Service. I can't even remember which trust. It's not a secret, it was part of it. And they were saying, look, every time you look at budgets for IT, you've got to say to yourself, well, would we be better paying for a nurse with that rather than this bit of tech? How do you look at that? How do you bring that in to say, well, we need this point of sale for the hotel, but equally, we kind of want to keep the charity going? How do you balance that?
I think, but you have to be pragmatic, I think, and you really have to pick your battles, which quite frankly does mean that you end up with a bit of legacy technology debt sometimes, because it's just not important to invest in that thing right here, right now. And then going back to your point about legacy, unless you're a startup, I don't think I've encountered ever an organization that doesn't have that legacy kit, right? It's part of the job. But you're absolutely right. I give the example of my car. It may be old, it may not have all the bells and whistles, but it will still get me to the shop, it will still get me to the hospital, it will still get me all the places I need. And they do play a part, right? They do play a part, and they were all put in for a very good reason to start with. But in terms of the charity sector, we have to be frugal. It is not our money, it is our donors' money. We're not a large corporate. The next pound isn't guaranteed. Every penny or cent needs to go towards supporting the mission. That does mean very careful prioritization of any change activity, and a conscious discussion for me about the split of investment across what's required to run, what's required to grow, and what's required to transform the organisation in those different categories of change. It also means making sure you deliver on the promise, because whatever you pick to do, you better make sure you do it, right? Because people are depending on it, and there is a real right first time mentality, because it's, you don't have that money to just throw money at it. You have to get it right. And I think, speaking to any corporate, I think they'd probably all say the same, really, if they had the choice. But at the RNLI, we call that stand in the red face test. I need to be able to stand in front of Doris or Bertie or pick your volunteer and look them in the eye with confidence and with integrity to say, I'm spending your money wisely. We're doing the right thing. We are doing our best. We're not making mistakes. We're giving everything we can to the front line, because, quite frankly, we are saving lives. There's certainly, in a more strategic perspective, we have a concept at the RNLI called the draining chain. And what that is effectively the series of events that leads to someone being in the water and in trouble. And the further left of the draining chain is about education, awareness, and influence. So, £1,000 spent on a bit of an educational material, backed by some evidence, that could reach millions of people. And it's very much a one-to-many relationship. At the other end of the scale, when someone's wet and in the water, that's a many-to-one relationship, right? So you have a lot of people helping that individual out of the water. So I'm certainly focused quite heavily on the things that can help us towards the left of that draining chain. One, because it helps us reach more people. Two, because it makes us more efficient and effective in the way we spend our money. And three, we just have a broader reach.
What do you see, looking at the futures, and I'm going to say this as future direction is aspirational and may change and all of that stuff. What little tidbits of that do you see that you think, actually, that could be exciting? And we're not going to hold you to it as predictions.
I think in terms of the future, there are probably, I'm going to say five. I'll keep it to five real themes that I'm excited about. One is certainly the smart stations, right? I want to go and see what that looks like, and I want to understand, what Lifesaver of the future will look like. I'm interested in smart beaches. What will a hyper-connected beach mean for public safety and for the way we keep people safe on those beaches? We're all going to be at home this year, right? We're not going to get too many abroad holidays. We're expected to be our busiest year ever. I'm certainly interested in water safety and what we can do there. I'm certainly interested in intelligent or innovative marketing and fundraising. And I'm certainly interested in data ecosystems. So what are all those different ecosystems we can bring together for the benefit of good? So we're starting to explore some of those things in the medium to longer term, either internally or working with partners. But too much to shake a stick at is probably my comment.
Thank you to Paul Smith for taking the time to chat with us today. And thank you for tuning into this episode of DevSecTalks. Visit the link in the description below for more details on this series And be sure to subscribe and turn on channel notifications to be the first to know about our upcoming episodes. And if you're interested in being a part of the DevSecTalks series, or if you have any topics you'd like to hear more of, let us know in the comments section below. I'll see you next time.